very simply put, we've tried to play in the exact same manner as Grieg was playing. We have tried to copy his way of playing the piano, playing his pieces,
exactly,
in order to understand the performance style.
And how have you done that?
Firstly, by listening a lot, preparing an awful lot, by listening millions of times to try to get as much to the inside of the performances before the actual process of recreating it. And then the process of recreating it has been a very meticulous process of recording bit by bit, listening to Grieg. We had a setup in the room in Grieg's villa with possibilities of playing back his performances all the time on a second's notice, and the constant playback, trying out and listening, and the continuous work to try to get closer to his performance, basically, and then editing as we go as well, to
yes.
try to put the elements together and build larger structures.
So editing while you're recording?
Yes, we did. I mean, one of the things that we wanted to do, and I knew we had to do very early on, because this is a very foreign way for me to work in such very, very small sections, and I was very concerned that it might not work, and I wanted to see, and it didn't work.
A performance editing.
Yeah, no. So what we did is we would work on a few bars at a time in tremendous detail. I mean, firing the ideas backwards and forwards between us, trying to get not just close, but really into the extreme detail of what was happening with the sound, the way he was phrasing, to actually make this sound the same, to get the same emotional experience from each phrase, from each breath. Now that clearly is not something you can do by playing the piece even a million times. So we were working on small sections. I tried very early on to join those up, and it was clear that although we were getting somewhere with some of the smaller scale detail, of course by editing it we were losing essential things the moment we made an edit. So one of the things we found straight away was that we found that we were working in this kind of detail, but we had to try and find a way that we could begin to perform it in larger sections. And in fact what we found was that as we worked on it, and as that got into Sigurd's body, there was a kind of almost a kind of organic recording system that we hadn't thought about that was actually in there and in there. And that happened so that it meant that the next day when we came back to look again, to work again on, say, those opening 10 bars that we'd worked on in tiny bits before, he was able to do remarkable things in the way that he could play the 10 bars and go on. And we ended up, by going full circle, arriving at a position where he was able to play, not by no means perfectly, but doing incredible things in the whole piece. And then afterwards, the most amazing amount of editing. I mean, we had so much material. I mean, we're talking here of in relation to what's on the disc, we're talking of a ratio of about 50:1. Which means that, and considering that I could either edit note by note, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, or on the other extreme, a whole piece, the potential, the variables, the where we could go with this was just incalculable. And we spent the best part of a year of time, over two and a half years, I think, working on this. I mean, reworking it, doing it, finding we were getting very close, really close. So at one point I was moving the original and Sigurd in one ear and Sigurd in the other, and I was able to get them so synchronized. But then listening back to it, we both felt that there was something missing here, that it was sounding too much like a piano roll or whatever, and so we had to go further on than that, find out what really makes this work. And actually, in some ways, I then loosened that up, and we found that, as we found in the recording itself, that what was really significant was understanding, getting the right emotional feeling, even down to that the same detail. How was the line moving? How was it physically developing? Getting the same sort of physical feeling and emotional feeling in me and you when we listen to Grieg and when we listen to Sigurd. And I think that's an incredibly difficult, almost impossible task.
The crucial part of this is, of course, what we do with it. This is dead knowledge unless we're able to use it and assimilate the knowledge in performances of other repertoire. There is, of course, a danger of just replicating, and the principle of replicating or imitating a performance is certainly not new. It's a very important part of the Suzuki method, for instance. Yes, we are imitating and replicating, but the main part here is trying to understand the performances and on a general level, and extract general information about the performances that we can take on in other repertoire.
And of course, to an extent, we have on this CD we've done that. We've already gone to the second stage. I mean, there's because in the sonata is a kind of meeting point between 1903 and 2010, because the first two movements Grieg never recorded. So those we've done. The whole idea of that is that they've been done with this kind of knowledge, and of course one shouldn't forget that this isn't trying to do something that's not in your body. I mean, it needs every ounce of Sigurd's creative brilliance as a pianist, and he's still flying. That's the whole point. He has to fly. He has to be able to. But it's just that he's doing that now with an increased knowledge. And the first two movements, yes, that's the third movement is the reconstruction. That's Grieg. So the first two movements have to make sense with the third movement. So that is a litmus test. You know, as you come out of whatever you're feeling and whatever the listener feels after those two movements, and you go into the minuet, that has to feel a natural development. Now that's not for us to say. We hope that works, but that's for everybody else to talk about. And then we come to the real meeting point where we begin the finale in the reconstruction. And then, very quickly, Sigurd then begins to fill in the parts that Grieg didn't do, because Grieg's recording of the finale is much compressed, and I think Sigurd would like to talk.
Well, he in the finale he presents the introduction, the first and second theme, and jumps to the coda, and in this way he presents all the most important material, but the development section is not there, and the reprise is not there, but the development section has of course been the most interesting.
And after the sonata, the sonata is a piece that we can make fairly direct relationships between the sonata and many of the pieces that Grieg, the 9 pieces that Grieg recorded. It helps us a lot in many areas, in a kind of direct way. I think. I mean, it's not the same music, but that travelling that distance is something we can do. It's not like travelling to Mars. It's we know we can get there. The bigger problem is the ballada, and the ballada is something that I think the 9 pieces. It helps us with in many ways, but it certainly doesn't give us the key to the most difficult things about that piece, which gives it. And so that is yet another challenge. I think each one of these is the reconstructions are one massive mountain to climb, and they really were. And I think doing the sonata on the back of that is yet another one, and the ballada is ultimately, I think, the pinnacle of that. That is the real test, because Grieg never recorded it, and because it's a piece.
He didn't record any parts of it either. No. So there is absolutely nothing, no other material existing from his recordings.
I'm a bit concerned about his chair because it's creaking.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, that's no problem.
Well,
We've got more creaking than that on our CD, so... Far more, actually.
Yes.
In the middle of the ballad, there's a glass falling over or something. And Tony refused to remove it.
Yeah, as always. Yes, of course.
So,
yes. I
and now
hope
you're
not.
worried about my chair squeaking.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Yeah.